Welcome to the Find and Keep Soul Love webinar, How to Have a Relationship Where Heart, Body, and Soul Unite in Ecstatic Ecstasy. And I welcome you here for the encore presentation of this. And I'm going to click in the right spot. I want to start out with a question and ask you, how many of you, and you don't have to answer except to yourself, but how many of you have struggled with love or watched passion fizzle or that love fade out? How many of you have wished that you had that deepest soul connection in the bedroom and out? And if that's you, then I think you also know that the path to that love, that soulful expression of love, comes from being who you are and honoring your soul in love. And so that's what we're going to talk about. It's truly that you know that it is the union, actually, of body, heart, and soul together that ignites those fires of passion. And that's what we're up to tonight. Or actually this morning. I'm used to doing these in the evening. We're having an encore. So, but that's what we're up to. That's what we're talking about. And I just want to open one other window here so that I can be in the full support of you. So bear with me just one moment. And okay, so with that, making sure I'm double checking that everybody's got the support that they need. So thank you for that momentary pause. And for those of you that are curious, yes, the recording will be available so that you can watch again. All right, let's keep going. Click. I am Joanna Shakti. You've heard me say that. And if you're curious about me and what I'm up to in the world, there's lots of places that you can find more information about me. Ecstaticintimacy.com. You'll find my YouTube channel, Ecstatic Intimacy. You'll find my Facebook page, Ecstatic Intimacy, and lots of other social media venues, but those are the big ones. And there's a picture on the left. Yes, I had the privilege a couple of years ago to be on America's Got Talent and share actually an aspect of sacred sexuality and sacred sensuality and the depth of kissing. So that was kind of fun. And lots of other places that I've gotten to live this mission. So if you want to check some of those out, I wanted to share with you how to find those. And so let's keep going. Let's talk about, why did I create this webinar? Why are we here this morning? And we're here because I want you to be able to have a love life that is phenomenal, extraordinary, deep, passionate. And the reason I put this together is because way too many relationships end up in the friend and roommate zone. Way too many relationships end up in breakup and divorce. There's too many amazing women out there who walk around wondering, where are all the strong men? Who, those same women, often find themselves exhausted and frustrated. And too many men find themselves trying so hard to make women happy and feel like they never get there. And they feel like where's some of my mojo? Like, I know it's in there, but I'm not getting it. I'm not bringing it out. And so that's the piece that I most want you guys to be aware of is that's why I do this. And so you're in the right place. If you've worked, male or female, you've worked so hard for love and maybe even sold yourself out or settled, trying to get that love, trying to keep that love, make sure they like me. So definitely. You've known heartache just too much. And in romance, but also in life. And so it is that space of honoring the heart that we're here for. You've watched passion fizzle or love fade. You're that strong, successful woman that is wondering, where are all the great men? Or you're that guy who keeps being labeled the nice guy and the friend. And that doesn't feed our soul. So if any of those sound like you, you're in the right place. And I am excited and honored to be serving you. So what are we sharing? What are we talking about today? We're going to talk about this idea of soul to soul love and what does it mean and how do you get there? And another thing that it means is why, not what it means, but why does it make a difference? And how is a relationship that's based on soul love unique from one that's not? And we'll talk about that. And what does it feel like in your body? We'll talk about the top 3 reasons that love fades and passion fizzles. What are those reasons so that you can start to move beyond them? We'll talk about why singles get their timing, quote unquote, wrong. And how to make sure you have the prerequisites, the things you need, the foundation laid, the road paved, whatever we want to call it, so that you can have that deeply soulful, heart igniting, passion burning fire of love. And so that's what we're up to. Oh, and absolutely, we are going to talk about these things called masculine and feminine and why they are so important to the sparks of passion. And we'll talk a little bit about sacred sensuality and sacred sexuality and how to begin the path to bringing those into your relationship. And what I always want to do is give you everything, and I can't. We have an hour, and I spend weeks and months working with these concepts with people. And so I will give you everything that I can possibly give you in the next 75 minutes. And then if you want to know how to get more, I'll share how to go deeper later. And if we're going to spend 75 minutes together, I'd like to give you a little bit of background on why I do what I do, why I'm so passionate, why I think this is so incredibly important. And one of the reasons that this is so important and why I stand so deeply for this soul is because I lost track of my soul and who I am and why it mattered so early in life. I grew up in the heart of the 70s, and I grew up in the beginning of the divorce movement. And those two things had an incredible impact on how I viewed myself as a female being, how I viewed men and relationship and love, how I viewed my own worthiness and lovability. And so growing up in those times and watching, for example, once my mom was divorced, and watching her date and relate and watching the struggles. And I would get attached to each of the men that she dated. And it would be like I was going through my own heartache over and over again. Not that it was all the time, but if she dated for several years, and there were times that my heart ached and I'm like, I don't trust men. And then there was all the stories with my dad and when he left and everything that I made up that was about me, and somehow I wasn't good enough and I wasn't enough. And I decided I was going to go out and do 2 things. I was going to prove that I was good enough. And I was going to do everything that would have people like me, love me, respect me. And at the same time, I never felt worthy of that love. And I ended up going to college and getting an electrical engineering degree. and making sure, again, that I would never have to depend on a man, because you couldn't depend on him. At least that's what my mind told me. It's what my body told me. It wasn't just a mental thing. It was like I had this fear in my body. But then the universe provides. In my last semester of my senior year, I met Prince Charming. He was 6'3", blonde hair, blue-eyed. He was a valedictorian, par golfer, concert pianist, you name it. He was it. And I was like, he's into me? Okay, it doesn't matter what things don't look right. If he's into me and he's that great, then I'm sticking around. I am hanging out. And so we got married. And we were divorced 4 years later. And then I started down that path again, relationship after relationship. And my sex was lousy. It was rare that I could orgasm. And I kept blaming it on all the men. Like, what's wrong with the men? And why can't men go deep? And why aren't men so sexually inhibited? And I fast forward a bunch of years, and I discovered that it was never them, it was me. And no matter how sexually passionate they would have wanted to be, I would never have let them. My husband, he could have never loved me enough for me to have felt loved, because this hole and disbelief in my unlovability was so huge. And in the midst of all of that, I was climbing the corporate ladder in the oil and gas and high-tech industries of Houston, Texas in the 90s with the good old boys. At 27, I was managing 60-year-old men. It taught me to be masculine. And so all of those struggles and all of the reasons that I cried on the phone to my friends and my family, my life, it sucks. I mean, that's what I used to say. And one day I ended up at an event that would change my life. And part of what came up for me was the wake-up call to the masculine feminine that we'll talk about tonight, to what it means to be attractive and confident and powerful. And I walked out of that event and I made a promise to myself and to the world that first I'd figure it out for me, and then I would serve the women who wanted this, so that they never had to go through the pain that I went through again. So that men that were in our lives never had to go through the pain that I put men through again. And so I took a stand, and about 15 months later left the corporate world. And so for now, the last almost 15 years, I have been diving in and serving men and women to create the deepest, most fulfilling relationships and lives. Because how happy we are in love has everything to do with how happy we are in ourselves. And so that's why I do what I do. So that there is the most soul love and intimate, passionate ecstasy that can be experienced in the world. At the very end, I'll tell you my mission statement. And with that, let's talk about what is soul love. And this is something that in a way is hard to describe, but let me do my best for you. And let's start with what it's not. It is not something that we can define. It is not something we can put our finger on. It's not something that we can reason our way through. It's something, as you'll hear in a moment, that we experience. It is definitely not that list of qualities that you think your partner is supposed to have, or the one that you want to attract is supposed to have. You'll probably hear me say this again, but our soul partner often doesn't look anything like what we imagine they're going to look like. It is not all about chemistry. Yes, chemistry is an aspect of it. There's a spark that gets ignited, but it is so much more than chemistry. And oh, by the way, it's also not all roses. And that might scare some of you, but let's be real, that soul love is about your deepest expression on the planet. It's about you loving and being loved at the fullest levels. And that means that we have to let go of all the ways that we hide from love. and all the ways that we pretend that we're not worthy of love. And it means that sometimes our buttons are going to get pushed, but that's actually a gift. And we'll talk about that more later. So that's what it's not. And what it is, it's very authentic. It is very intimate, and it's very ecstatic. It is passionate, it is alive, it is juicy, it is teaching us, and sometimes it's challenging, but it's profound. It is wordless. It is something that brings together every aspect of our being and unites it with every aspect of another being, so that we can have the deepest of connections, pleasures, intimacies, and joys available on this human journey. It, as I said before, awakens all of who you are. It demands that you show up fully so that you can be loved fully. And why does it matter? Well, without it, I can guarantee you that heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak, like I used to go through, keeps happening because you're not aligned with who you are and what you're meant to experience in the world and how to attract the partner that is truly you. It's where we keep dating the wrong men or the wrong women, or we're in a relationship and we look back and we're like, we've got the same challenges over and over again because you're the common denominator. And so when you get aligned with your soul, you can move through those challenges and you recognize your soulmate. When you're not aligned with your soul, when you are not loving and bringing your soul to love, it's exhausting because you're putting on all the fronts, trying to be all the right things, trying to do all the right things. And it never works. And it's why we sometimes want to go, screw it, it's not worth it, because you're selling yourself out all the time. And it's also, I mentioned this earlier, without soul love, we leave when the going gets tough. But then you do that relationship pattern over and over and over again. So soul love empowers us to be able to go deeper. It empowers us to be able to have more because we're aligned and expressing our soul. With it, it is freeing. It is liberating. It's like, oh my God, I finally get to be myself and I'm loved for it. This is what I always wanted. And it's also the gateway to true connection, where so many people come to me because they're hungry for great sex. But we actually can't have the greatest of sex until we have the greatest of heart openings and heart connections. And we can't have the greatest of heart connections where we come into that true bonding of intimacy without knowing our own soul. And so it is the way to have that deepest, fullest, most ecstatic experience. It's where being admired and cherished and honored and valued and even treasured, like that this is precious, that my partner is precious, male or female, that it's something to be deeply respected and honored. And oh by the way, the relationship that we create is also there to be respected and honored and cherished. And it is truly where love becomes wordless, where it becomes an experience that you know in your body, in your heart, in your soul. And it becomes harder and harder to put words to, but you know it's there and you feel it. And then it ignites as you're making love, or it ignites through the glance across the room, or the deep gaze into each other's eyes. So that's why it matters. And oh, by the way, when we can really connect to this may sound crazy, but we imagine fireworks and all this crazy energy, which sometimes can show up, but it's also something much deeper. And oh, by the way, if we're talking about orgasms, when you're able to access that deepness, for some women, the stillness can bring on the most exquisite orgasms. And we miss that without connecting body, heart, and soul. So now that we have an idea of what it is and why it matters, let's talk about the top 3 reasons that love fades and passion fizzles out, so that you start to see what's going on in your relationships and how to make it different. And so the very first reason, I alluded to this earlier, but it is the idea of the nice guy and the nice girl. And the nice guy and the nice girl try to do the right things. They try to be the right things. They try to be whatever's going to make you happy. They try to adjust themselves. I like to call it pretzel twisting. I twist myself into a pretzel so that I don't upset you, so that you like me, so you don't leave, so you don't abandon me, so you don't judge me. And we have this idea, the other piece that plays into the nice girl is that, well, or the nice girl or the nice guy, is that your happiness and your needs are more important than mine. And that couldn't be more false. And so sometimes we put on that happy face, thinking that my fake, pseudo happy face, but hoping you don't know it's fake, is what you need in order to have this relationship work. And it doesn't work that way. When we do the nice girl, the nice guy, you're more important than me thing, resentment, this is the breeding ground of resentment. As a matter of fact, the number 1 destroyer of intimate relationships is not abandonment by another. It's actually self-abandonment. It is the abandonment of who I am, what I need, what I want, what I desire. And it's making you more important than me. And it doesn't work. And it's the breeding ground of resentment. And there is nothing that will destroy love faster than resentment, because every moment that we're resentful is putting space between us. And that's not what we want. What we're trying to do is keep ourselves connected, but what we're doing is actually separating. This trying to make the other person more important and being that nice girl, nice guy is devastating to soul love relationships. And I talked about self-abandonment, and here's the pretzel. If we pretzel twist, if we settle, if we try to be that thing, it's actually repelling. It's actually repelling. If we are settling, if we are saying, oh yeah, that works for me, but it really doesn't, but I'm so afraid to lose the possibility of the relationship that I don't tell the truth. Oh, by the way, the conflict avoiders out there, this is probably you. And I was one of them. I'm like, I don't like conflict. So I'm going to do whatever I can to avoid conflict. But the only way that I could avoid conflict was to not tell the truth about my own needs, wants, and desires. And then I walk around pissed off. Why don't you ever take care of me? I used to be pissed at my ex-husband because he would ask me for a back rub every night. And at first I was like, oh, that's cool. Sure, I'll give him a back rub. Sure, I'll give him a back rub. And then after a while, I was pissed. I'm like, I don't want to give you a back rub anymore. You never give me a back rub. And it wasn't honestly until years later when I was doing this work that I was like, oh, yeah, he never gave me a back rub because I never asked for one, because I would never ask. But I was pissed off that he would, and that he would ask over and over again. And I never felt worthy enough to ask for what I really wanted, so I settled. And it doesn't work. And I sold myself out. All the red flags that I had before I married him, I sold my own knowing and intuition out because I so wanted Prince Charming. And I thought that would make my life great. Yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong. So here's the key. We have to find our own confidence. We have to find our own truth. And then we have to be confident enough to share it. But here's what's really cool. Confidence is actually a byproduct of walking the path of soul love. What do I mean by that? Well, here's the thing. The first part, one of the key foundational parts of a path of soul love is something I call ecstatic authenticity. And that means that you have such a great relationship with you. You know how amazing you are, how lovable you are, that you will never again, because you're too important and you're too valuable. And this is not an arrogant thing. It's a genuine truth thing. But that you are so valuable in your uniqueness with your own needs, wants, desires, tastes, preferences, visions, that you are so valuable in that you would never sell yourself out, settle, or twist yourself into a pretzel for anybody or anything again. Because one, you're too valuable, and two, you know that doing it is way too painful and it doesn't work anyway. Because ask yourself, all the times you've twisted yourself into a pretzel or you've settled, did you ever get what you were looking for? And when you have that kind of ecstatic authenticity, confidence, you don't have to go find it. It's just there. Like, the courage to tell the truth about who you are is just there. And that confidence is sexy and it's attractive. And we'll touch on it again when we look at reason 2. But that's the essence, is find out who you are and confidence will be the byproduct. So let's look at reason 2. Reason 2, the friend and the roommate zone. It's the place where that passion fizzles and we become friends and maybe not lovers. Or before we ever get to be lovers, no, let's just be friends. It's where we're attracting the wrong ones because you're trying to be something that you're not. And it's often why the ones that you're not attracted to are the most attracted to you, because you're actually being yourself. And here's the other thing with this, and this was a huge part of my wake-up call as that engineer who was trying to beat out all the men. My last boss called me a bully. He's like, you intimidate people. And I was like, what? I'm a bully? Because it so didn't register, because I knew it wasn't who I was, but it was how I was showing up. And oh, by the way, if I'm really honest, there's a part of me that brought that bully nature. And it wasn't nature, the bully habits to men, and I emasculated them. And the men that I wanted to stand up and be my hero, I took down with me trying to prove and compete and outman every man, including the men in my life. And then I wondered what was wrong. And that's what it can look like for women. What it can look like for men, and we're going to talk about, this isn't all men and all women, so I'll talk about that in a moment, but what it can look like for men is that men want to make women happy. And so they will set themselves aside trying to make a woman happy. But no matter what they do, it's often not enough. And then the emasculating bully woman can come in, like me, like I used to do. But here's the thing, eventually men give up. And they're like, oh, you want to make all the plans? Okay, great, I'll let you. And you want to take care of this and plan that and manage that? And they go, okay, because they want to make you happy, women. But then as women, we're pissed off because we can't depend on them and they never do what we want them to do. And this is the kind of dynamic that neutralizes what we're going to talk about as masculine and feminine energy. And the neutralization of that absolutely eliminates the attraction and the spark that is so key in our relationships. And so what we want to find here is connection. So let's dive in a little bit and talk about what creates that connection. What is it that really empowers us to be so attractive, so magnetic? And here's what I'm talking about. And this is true both romantically and it's also true professionally. So what we're talking about here is the idea of moths to a flame. It's the idea of being captivating. That flame is so captivating that the moths find themselves drawn inexplicably to it. Here's the other thing that it can look like. Many years ago, this was probably 8 or 9 years ago, I walked into an event and I was listening to the speaker, and I was actually going to do a little blurb at, a little short intro of a workshop that I had coming up. And so two things happened. One, as I was sitting in the room, I noticed this guy off to the side. And I'm like, who is that? Because his presence was like so there. And I was like, he wasn't saying a word. We were completely across the room, but I could feel him. And there was something that commanded my attention. And I'm like, I want to know who that is. And then, unbeknownst to me at the time, but as I walked up and did my little introduction thing, he stood back and went, who is that? Because have you ever noticed, and this isn't about romance, because I'll notice this too, but that woman that walks across the room, and there's just something about her in the way that she moves, in her presence. You have no idea who she is, what she's about, but you want to know about her. And that was the kind of experience that he had. It was like, who is that? Or it can show up professionally. I've done, little short things where I've introduced myself, and then I've had women walk up and go, I don't know what you just said, but however you're showing up, I want that. Because it's the same thing where in romance or in business, it's about knowing, liking, and trusting someone. We do business. Men do business with men that they trust. Women do business with men that they trust, and vice versa. We do business with women that we trust, who we like, who feel good to us. This is the kind of connection and attraction that we're talking about. And it's because you're being authentic that this comes alive. And it's authentic, not just in our needs, wants, and desires that we were talking about in reason one, but also in your sexual essence, which is the foundation of what we're talking about here in the masculine and feminine. And so I'm going to get to that masculine and feminine in just a moment. But to connect and be that attractive, you have to be you. You're going to hear me talk about ecstatic authenticity over and over again because it keeps setting the stage. You have to be you. You have to love being you and stop hiding you and trying to be invisible. Like, we'll go, I want you to see me, but I don't want you to see me. And we'll talk about that again in a moment. When you try, it's when you become needy and repelling. So trying backfires. You don't get what you want. And here's the thing. When you're trying, you often miss out on the ones that are right for you, missing out on the moment with your soulmate, or missing out on the opportunity for a great lovemaking experience. And couples, again, when you're trying, you are not, if you're chasing for sex or you're chasing for love or affection, you're actually going to push it away until you embody it. And oh, by the way, in the professional world, we also miss out on opportunities for those that are going to support us, customers, partners, jobs for that matter. So this is incredibly important. And stop wasting time and energy trying to be something that you're not. It never works anyway. So magnetic attraction and true power, masculine, feminine, yin and yang. Let me say this. I am not talking about gender, and I am not talking about orientation. In this conversation about masculine and feminine, we are talking about energy. And that energy of masculine and feminine lives in every single one of our bodies. We all have it. For most of us, one is stronger or more predominant than the other. And for some of us, they're absolutely equal, but that's actually a pretty small number. Let me grab a sip of water here. Or tea, or tea, I should say. But in any case, we are talking about these two energies and how they connect. And here's the thing. You see the yin and the yang there, and they're in relationship with each other. These are like magnets. These two energies are like magnets. And when they come together, they stick, and it actually takes some force to pull them apart. And that's the power of this attraction in our romantic life, in our romantic relationships. But yet if these are magnets and they're sticking and I flip one of those, we all know what happens. We used to play with the magnets as kids. It's like, how fast can they get away? And if somebody's thinking, how fast can I get away, whether they're our beloved or somebody that we wish was our beloved, or we're wondering if they might be a good beloved, that kind of sucks when it's that repelling. How fast can I get away? And before we talk about these qualities, I also want to say something about the yin and the yang. Look at those two symbols and notice that the two sides come together, they mirror each other. And in each side is a fully enclosed circle of the opposite. And so what has happened for me is that I was that overpowering, go get it done, beat them at their own game, masculine being. But it was a facade, because the truth is I'm feminine at my core. And when I stopped putting on all the masculine masks, and I found, and it took me a while, and it was a challenge, but when I finally found this feminine being that I am, didn't mean that I lost my masculine, because in the beginning that was the fear. Oh my God, if I let go of all these ways of being, I'm gonna not succeed. But the truth is, the truth is I could succeed better with less energy and have a more powerful experience when I let my masculine come in alignment with my feminine. And so now my masculine, just as you see in that yin and the yang, it's about 25% of the whole area, and it comes through, it's fully enclosed. So my masculine is fully surrounded by my feminine, because my feminine is actually my predominant energy. In a masculine being, and for right now, even though I said it's not gender, what I also will say is that the majority of men have predominant masculine energy. The majority of women have predominant feminine energy. For a few, it is reversed. And for some, a small percentage, it's actually more neutral or expansive, more balanced. But the balanced and the reversed of the gender is a very small percentage relative to the whole. And so I am going to, for the purposes of this conversation, interchange male and masculine, female and feminine. If those are reversed for you, then just reverse what I'm saying. So in this masculine side, what I will say, if I'm in a big group of participants, men and women, and I'll say to the women, hey, when a man really shows up and he's standing tall in who he is, like that guy I saw across the room, and there's just this presence and you can feel it. And I'll say, is that attractive? And they'll go, yeah, totally. Super attractive. And then I go, okay, wait, take that same guy. And he keeps standing tall and he holds that presence and he knows who he is. And then without giving any of that presence up, I like to call it actually a walking erection, because the erection goes up. It's not about a sexual erection, but he's standing erect in that presence. And I say, okay, that guy who's standing erect in his presence, now if he opens his heart and is able to show you his emotions and some of his softness, did his attraction go up or down? And they're all like, up. Oh my God, that's where it melts a feminine woman. So that's how the energy starts to express itself. Here's another thing that I'll tell you before. I'm going to bring the qualities up on each side of the yin and yang in a moment. But here's the other thing that I can tell you is that masculine energy comes off the body. It is penetrating. It is moving forward. It's very narrow and focused, not in a bad way. We need that energy. But masculine energy is narrower and focused. It's coming off the body and penetrating. And it's I'll actually start as I'm describing this. It's goal-oriented. It's focused. Sometimes it's assertive. Sometimes it's aggressive. So one of the ways that you'll know if you're in masculine energy is the energy of your body coming off your body. If it's coming off your body, if it's moving forward and coming off your body, you are absolutely expressing masculine energy in that moment. And so it's good in this process. And I take the people that work with me in my programs, we dive deep into this to look at all the ways when you do it, when you don't do it, how you sabotage yourself, how you settle and put on a mask. But for right now, I want you to be able to recognize what you're up to. And so the masculine energy penetrating energy, moving forward, producing a result tends to be very narrow and focused. If somebody says, oh, you interrupted me, they're probably in masculine energy. Feminine energy, you'll see, is actually tracking a lot more things, and it's less likely to say that you interrupted me. It's one of the ways that I know, oh, I've dropped into my masculine energy. Another thing about masculine energy is that it's very disciplined and competitive. In contrast to the feminine, there's more of a surrender. There's a collaborative versus competitive nature. And if I had time, I could tell you about some of the things that they're actually recognizing in the corporate world and success of businesses around these two energies. The feminine is more flowing. She's expansive. She's embracing. She's receptive. So the masculine penetrates, the feminine receives. Here's the thing I notice about a lot of women these days. I'll know a woman who's out of her feminine energy because, one, she asks where all the strong men are. But two, another way I can tell is when a modern day woman, I like to say her mantra is, no, I got it, when somebody asks her for help. And not asks her for help, but asks if she can help. Can I carry that for you? Can I lift your suitcase for you? Can I take care of that for you? And she goes, no, I got it. That's her mantra. The mantra of the happy and pleasured feminine woman, thank you, as she receives the contribution of the masculine. And I can't get into all the differences between men and women, but I can tell you there are well over 100 of them, is that the masculine wants to contribute. And and I'll say he in this case, if the masculine isn't needed, he'll go somewhere else, because part of what that masculine wants to do is contribute. And so these are some of the qualities. If I had a gentleman that called me years ago and he said, he's talking to me about wanting some support. And he says, I really want a woman who is sexually expressed and wild. And I'm like, okay, great. As long as you're showing up with him as a man who can hold that space for a woman, you can attract that. That's totally possible. You got to be that guy, but it's possible. And we kept talking. And a few minutes later, he goes, but I don't want a woman that's emotional. Ding! I knew what the problem was, because the feminine expresses her sexuality and her freedom and her radiance. She also must have her emotion. They are tied one to one. They go together. And so this is an opportunity for the masculine to become comfortable with how to fully experience and witness and be present to a woman's emotions. Because if you can do that, men, oh, by the way, you're going to get a much more sexually expressed woman. So let's look at this, because the key of all of this is I don't care what your sexual essence is. If it's reversed, that's fine. If it's balanced, that's fine. But what's important, you've heard me say authenticity over and over again. What's important is that you figure out what your core essence is, and then you align with it. So when I was showing you masculine and feminine, just notice for a moment, where do you spend a lot of your time? And how much of each one are you embodying? And then what are you attracted to? Like your ideal lover, are they embodying more masculine energy or more feminine energy? And then that ideal lover, notice, have you been attracting that kind of partner? More predominantly feminine or more predominantly masculine? Or have you been attracting the exact opposite? Because, oh, by the way, when I was being that masculine being, I kept attracting the guys that were the nice guys and the sensitive new age guys who tended to be more connected to their feminine. And I was frustrated all the time. So I had a pattern of attracting exactly the opposite of what I was attracted to. So I want to ask you 4 quick questions so that you can start to see. Again, in my longer term programs, I take this deeper. But right now, let's give you 4 questions to start getting a sense of your masculine or feminine essence. So the first question is, and answer these questions, that you get to write the story. You can't be rejected. You can't be judged. You get to have it your way. You're not abandoned. Everything works out. They say yes if you ask them out. The date goes well, or whether you're, again, in a relationship or not, it works. So it's your story. Answer it from that ideal place. First question. Are you attracted to someone, your ideal partner, physically larger than you or physically smaller than you? Second question, ideal partner. Are they physically stronger than you, i.e. they pick you up and carry you or move you across the bed? Or are you physically stronger than your ideal partner? You pick them up, you move them across the bed? Third question. If we're dating or planning a date, even if you're in a relationship, do you prefer to be asked out, picked up, and taken to dinner? Or do you prefer to ask out, pick up, and take to dinner? Remember, you can't get rejected and your date is happy. So do you prefer to be courted or do you prefer to court? And then the last question, if you're in a hot, steamy kiss up against a wall, more times than not, are you the one against the wall being kissed? Or are you the one facing the wall giving the kiss? If you're the one facing the wall giving the kiss, that's feminine. I'm sorry, if you're the one facing the wall giving the kiss, that's masculine. If you are the one that is courting, asking out, picking up, taking to dinner, that's masculine. If you are picking up your partner and moving your partner across the bed, that's masculine. If you are physically larger, that's masculine. And the reverse, physically, you prefer your partner physically larger, you're smaller, that's feminine. You prefer to be picked up, that's feminine. You prefer to be against that wall, that's feminine. You prefer to be asked out, picked up, and taken to dinner, that's feminine. So just notice what you discovered about yourself with those questions. And contrast that to who you've been attracting, what's going on in your current or past relationships in terms of spark, and is it neutralized because you're both running the same energy? Just simply notice, and notice if you're surprised. And bottom line, the most important thing to be is you. Your sexual essence, your needs, wants, and desires, who you are. This is what's most attractive. This is what will have you attract and grow and ignite soul-to-soul love. Stop being anything but you. Because if you are anything but you, you will waste energy, you will be frustrated, and relationships are not going to work out. They just won't. This goes back to self-love. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. I'll actually wait and tell you that story in just a moment. So this is a journey. This is not a destination. This is, my voice just doesn't want to stay with me. And this is a journey, not a destination. It is how much more passion and ecstasy can we experience? How much more intimacy can we experience? And how can we keep going deeper and deeper in our dating, in our relating? And so this never ends. One of my teachers used to say, how open is open? Is that open? Is that open? Is that open? If I could bend my fingers backwards, is that open? Like, there's always more to experience. There's more capacity for love, and we keep getting to discover that for ourselves. And so I want to talk about this path of soul love, because this is how I'm going to go to reason 3. There's 3 reasons that I'm sharing, but I want to introduce a little bit of this because reason 3 will make even more sense if I give you an idea of how this idea of soul love progresses. And we're starting in, I'm also going to tell you a little bit later, really review the prerequisites for soul-to-soul love. But again, that'll make more sense if I set this up. So let's talk about this path of soul love. And it starts with you. And this was the story that I wanted to share. I didn't date. I wanted to date a guy back in college. And I remember he was a friend, but I wanted to date him. And we were sitting in his room and he's like, I am not dating you because you don't like yourself. And he's like, not only do you not like yourself, you don't love yourself, and you can't love another until you love yourself. God, I was pissed. I was like 20 years old. I was pissed. And I'm like, you're clueless. I have a great relationship with myself. He was totally right, by the way. I was so critical and nasty and mean to myself. But it wasn't until my mid-30s that I had this wake-up call, and I was like, oh my God, he was totally right. And oh, by the way, remember when I said my husband couldn't have loved me enough for me to feel loved in our marriage? That was it. So this starts, whether it can piss you off, and believe me, it pissed me off. But it starts with you and the relationship with you. It starts with ecstatic authenticity. Who you're being, your soul's expression. And oh, by the way, we said you got the confidence. And then there's the intimacy, where we open deeper and we share and we reveal, and we are able to connect and bond at that heart level, at that soul level. It's about relating. Until you know who you are, you actually can't relate, because I can't tell you the number of men and women that I meet that say, I don't know what I want. I don't know what makes me happy. I don't know what I need. I'm so busy taking care of everybody else, or I don't matter. It's more like we can't relate from that place because we have nothing that we can share. And so this is where the true connection and that polarity comes in. And then, oh, by the way, then we get into the ecstatic ecstasy, where it feels so good in bed and out to live life and experience the fullest of pleasures and connections and intimacies. And it's where we can actually start to unite, where the body, if we're making love, where we lose track of where one body begins and the other one ends, because we're experiencing the chemistry of that union. And that's what so many of us are looking for. And the way that this happens is that it actually lets your soul evolve. One of the things is that you can't love me or anybody or be loved for just your greatness, because we've all got our shadow side. We've all got our challenges. We've all got our weaknesses, and most of us try to hide them. Believe me, I did, and sometimes I still catch myself trying to hide my quote unquote imperfections. Oh, I don't want you to see me. Oh, all the things that I'm afraid you'll see in me and I try to hide. It doesn't work. You have to be loved for all of it. But what that takes is first, into me I see. I look into me and I get to know me. And I start to honor me as sacred. Then I can unite with another. And I can let you see into me. Into me you see. And now we're both sacred. And then we get into the divine humanness, where we actually we come into union. And into me you are. We have united in this. And it's where, on a spiritual journey, through our sexuality is one of the most powerful ways. There are many, and I talk about those actually in another course, but there are many ways to experience the oneness of our divineness. But sexuality is one where, when those bodies intertwine and our energies intertwine and our hearts intertwine, that we can experience that fullest of divine union and the oneness that we are. And everything becomes sacred at that point. It's an unfolding of love. It's the self-love. It's, if you aren't willing to be seen in your beauty and your mess, your perfection and your imperfection, your strength and your weakness, you're not available for love. I use a 7-layer diamond in my Activating Soul Love program, that it's the 7-layer diamond of self-love and self-relating. And you actually have to be at the midpoint on that diamond before you're actually ready to be in a relationship. Now, if you're already in a relationship listening to this, you can recover this. But your relationship, to take it to the next level, you've got to individually get in relationship with you and at least get to that midpoint on that diamond of self-love. And that's where you're available for love. And this is where we get into true partnership, and where we can actually deepen for those that are on a spiritual journey in that awakening. Here's the problem. We have all these barriers where I talked about, I'm just going to show all of these, where unworthy, undeserving, unlovable, the stories of self-judgment, where we limit our possibility. And as we move through these phases, if you will, this progression, we have to come into that place where we know our wholeness. We know our value. We know everything that is lovable about us, including our shadow, our weaknesses. And we also can't have judgment and expectation. If I look at the ecstatic intimacy phase, expectation and obligation, where we mistrust, destroys the bond that we want to create. And so to move into this fullest of the ecstasy of intimacy, the ecstasy of ecstasy, we have to move through the limiting consciousness and let go of all the stories that we've told about why we're not worth it, why we can't have it, why it doesn't work for us, why it's all their fault. By the way, blaming just so doesn't work. You can't blame the opposite sex for the challenges or your past for that matter, or your parents or anybody else, because you actually have the power to change this. And when your soul moves through this evolution of love, things like self-acceptance and respect show up. You know you're worthy. And we get into relationship and there's mutual respect, embracing, honoring, cherishing. And ask yourself this: what would it be like to be in a relationship where you are treasured, where you are held as sacred, where worshiped, I use that word, and it's not like you're better than me, I've put you up on a pedestal. No, that is so false. But it's that you are that sacred and divine, that we treat each other that deeply, with that much honor, that much reverence. What would it be like if we revered our partners and our relationship? This is soul love. And it starts with you. I've said it, I'm not going to go through this again, but to just keep coming back to, it starts with you and how you show up in every phase. And getting into the sacred sensuality and the sacred sexuality, the fullest of pleasures in the third phase, but we can't have the third phase without the first two. And then the question for you really is, how far on your path of soul love do you want to go? How far on this journey is your soul and your heart and your body called? And just start to feel that. And then I want to ask, well, no, I don't want to ask, but I know a lot of people are often at this point, like, who really does this? Who walks this path of soul love? And men walk it. Men that have found themselves in the friends and roommate zones, the nice guys, the sensitive new age guys. They want more mojo. And they know they've got it, but they're out of touch with it. I can't tell you the number of men that can reflect back, yeah, there was a time in my life where I had that, but I'm out of touch with it and it's not working in my relationships. And oh, by the way, I have men that come and do work with me and they're like, I came to you because I was going through a divorce, or I broke up, or I wanted to meet my woman and you didn't tell me my business was going to get better. Well, all of this, men and women alike, from the boardroom to the bedroom and everywhere in between, our soul is expressing itself. We just happen to be focusing on romance predominantly here, but this is about you. Women who feel powerful yet lonely, or they're frustrated and annoyed and feel like they can't depend on that man, or the women like me who intimidated the heck out of men, and yet it was only because I was trying to prove something and I was so afraid to let the real me be seen because I thought it was going to be judged as weak or pathetic or needy. And it's anything but. Like the masculine, not even just the masculine that I'm in relationship with, but the masculine shows up to support me all the time. And it's such a blessing. So women, that's the kind of women. And then couples walk this path together. And often there's an individual in a relationship that is more passionate about moving things forward than others. And so sometimes one person in a relationship will do this, but I can guarantee you that one person changing, shifting, waking up to who they are and showing up as who they are in relationship will absolutely change the relationship. It has to. It can't stay the same if you choose to shift. It has to evolve. And so how do you walk the path? Activate soul love. Connect with your own ecstatic authenticity. Be that, feel that, show up as that, and be willing to be seen. Love soul to soul. Open your heart to the vulnerability and the truth and the intimacy that is your soul's expression that lets you bond. And then step into that union and experience the unconditional love, the ecstatic love that is actually part of our divine humanness. And so if you might be one of these soul lovers, then let's have a soul love date. What the heck do I mean by that? Here's the thing. On dates, if we look at a normal date, and again, this doesn't matter, singles, couples, men, women, on a regular date, we spend time getting to know each other. And we spend time like looking out into the future. We may talk about it. We may definitely be thinking about it in ourselves, and we're looking out. Like, does this match with the future vision that I have? So on some level, we're also, depending on what you've got in your vision, and too many of us have those checklists, but you might be going over that checklist. Like, does this person match all those things? And maybe you're talking about all the things that went wrong in the past that you're actually sitting there having a date. Well, what I'm talking about here when I say let's have a soul love date, I'm actually talking about you and me. And if we have a soul love date, here's what we're going to do. It's much like a normal date, but a little bit different. One, we're going to get to know each other. And oh, by the way, like, I want to know those out there in the world that are on this path of soul love, because you heard me say in the beginning, like, this is my mission, to serve soul love in the world. So I want to know you. And two, we are going to talk about your vision. And is it clear? Because here's the thing, if we don't have a vision for our relationship or our future partner, and not that checklist, but an internal experiential vision, we're not going to know when they walk into our lives or when we have it in our relationship, because we can't recognize that we have something if we don't even know what we're looking for. So we talk about that vision and you feel it. And yes, we absolutely, on this kind of soul love date, we absolutely have to talk about where you've been stuck, challenged, frustrated, what's been getting in the way, so that you then can know, here's where I am, here's where I want to go, how do I get there? And we actually identify what are the best next steps for you. And in that, here's the thing. Sometimes at the end of a date, let's go back to normal date. At the end of a normal date, we're sort of deciding what's the future look like. And maybe you want to have a second date, or maybe you're like, you know what, I think you'd be better friends with or you'd be a better match with my colleague or my friend Sally or Bob. And so maybe you introduce them to somebody else. Maybe you have a second date, or maybe you go, you know what, this person isn't ready for a relationship. And that's a possibility. So on a soul love date where you and I are together, we're also going to talk about, for some, you might want a second date with me. For others, I actually might say, you know what, where you are, what you're challenged with, what you're looking for, I think one of my colleagues or this book or this program that somebody else offers might be great for you. And I'm going to give you that recommendation because you have to be served at the highest level on your path of soul love. And I may not be that person. Or some people come to love and relating and they'll think that they're ready and they're not. And so I'm going to say to you, you know what? I think there's some pre-work that you need to do. I think there's some other things that you need to do first before you're ready to really dive into soul to soul loving. And so I'll tell you that if there's something I think you need to go do first. Or here's the other thing that happens is some people will show up on dates. I'm ready. I am so ready. And they are so hooked. in the past, in their past relationship, that, well, that's actually the one I was talking about. I just merged those two. But you'll think you're ready, but you're not ready. And then there's those of you that don't go on dates because I'm not ready. I'm not ready. No, I'll be ready in 6 months, or and on our Soul Love date, we're actually going to help you get clear. Are you really ready? Because some of you aren't stepping out when you are ready. So that's what a Soul Love date is about. And it's about you and I spending private one-on-one time looking at your future right now and helping you get clear and empowered to know, how do I step forward on this path of soul love? So that's what a Soul Love date's about. And I said before, men, women, singles, couples, there's bonuses. I want you to stay in the momentum of this. I couldn't tell you today about some of the differences between men and women, or the fact that there are different turn-ons sexually. Like, we are so turned on differently that I want you to know some of that stuff. And there's also this thing called desire that is so magnetic. It's a little bit of law of attraction. And those are all things that, whether you're in relationship or you're looking for it, are going to support you. So the bonuses when you sign up for a Soul Love date with me is the 4-part Ignite the Spark video series that's going to talk to you about turn-ons and the differences. It's actually quite raw and real. Men and women talking about the different turn-ons that we have, the differences between men and women, how to ignite desire. You're also going to get a Soul Love Barriers quiz that has almost 40 questions on it that will help you identify, out of 6 areas, which ones are the biggest challenges for you, which ones are getting in the way of your ecstasy, authenticity, and intimacy. So those are the bonuses that you get. And right now, all of that together, the time with me, the plan, the vision for you, the bonuses, $97. And go to ecstaticintimacy.com/soul-love-date. And if I can do this real quickly, I'm going to type it right here in the comments. Whoops. So you can actually just click on it. Soul-love-date. Did I do that right? Give me my mouse. Nope, I spelled it wrong. There we go. Not that. I still spelled it wrong. D-A-T-E. Okay, now you can click on it in the comments box. And so how do you do this? You go to Ecstatic Intimacy, soul-love-date. When you register, you're going to be taken to a profile form. You're going to fill out that form so that I know more about you and we can go as deep as possible on that first date. It's sort of like the online dating. We're sharing a few things, but I want to serve you at the highest level. So you're going to fill out that profile form. When you fill out that profile, then it's going to take you directly to my calendar to schedule this week with me. And then you get immediate access to your bonuses. You're going to be taken right to the download page or not download, but the viewing page for those videos. And then join me for the date so that we can lay that path, so that you can create an experience together with me where you can feel the deepest of your soul's calling, where you get beyond all the thoughts in your head of should I, shouldn't I, where am I, am I ready, am I not, to really feel seen and heard and honored, where you can tell the truth in a way that's rare and experience your soul's vision. That's what I want for you on this date, so that you can feel confident in knowing you're on the path, so you can feel empowered. I got this. I'm on my way. So that's what's possible. And now let's talk about reason 3. And the reason I wanted to set the stage of that path before we talked about reason 3 is for all of you that are wanting the great sex, the great passion, both in bed and out, in the kitchen, in the car, on the date, in bed, all those places, is that if you don't set that foundation of those first 2, the ecstatic authenticity, the ecstatic intimacy, you can't have this one. And we've truthfully, Dr. Oz talks about the sexual famine, particularly in the Americas, but I know there's a lot of this around the world. And I know people are joining in from all over the world. And so there's also, America was founded on by the Puritans. We've got a puritanical nature, judgment and shame. And yet, if we're hiding, talk about ecstatic authenticity, and I hide all my sexual desires from you, we can't be close. We can't actually know each other. There's this separation, and this happens all too often, that men and women don't feel like they can tell you the truth of their desires because you might reject me. And we won't even admit to ourselves because there's so much conditioning. This was some of me. And so we get into this where we get a completely juxtaposed, if you will, out of sync relationship with our sexuality. Some of us have used sex to get love. Oh, if I just have sex, then they'll love me, or they'll be happy with me again. Or worse yet, maybe not worse yet, just a different worse, is that we have sex thinking that we have intimacy, but we're actually avoiding the deepest of connections through our sexuality. And so there's all kinds of ways that we get muddied up and out of sync and disconnected from, as we've been talking about, body, heart, and soul through our sexuality. And this is devastating to relationships as well. Our sexual expression is not just critical to our relationships, because it is. And those of you that have said, I don't care if I ever have it again, I don't believe you. But it's also our life force. It's also our vitality. It's what keeps us alive. Our sexual center, our second chakra, for those of you that know what that is, it's our life force. It's our creativity. It's our expression. So if we don't feel free and fulfilled and expressed in the world, it has to do with our relationship with our sexuality. Seems maybe crazy. It would have to the engineer in me a few years ago, but it's the truth. And so we're looking for the authentic chemistry in ourselves and between each other, our true authentic chemistry and turn on. So that's the third reason. And you've got to come into relationship with your own turn on, your own chemistry, your own deepest, hottest passion and ecstasy. And so with those three reasons in mind, let's look at the prerequisites for this ecstatic intimacy and soul love. And we were talking about those two phases, ecstatic authenticity, activating soul love, and loving soul to soul, the ecstatic intimacy. The transition point between those two phases, that, or where I talked about this 7-layer diamond of self-love, the midpoint, it's where we actually become available for love, where I let you see all of me, you let somebody else see all of you. Then and only then are you actually available for love. Is ecstatic intimacy even available for you? So that's that transition point, and it's critical to have this experience of soul to soul love. Here's the other thing. Loving soul to soul is risky. If you're authentic, you might not be liked. And that's okay, because you've got that ecstatic authenticity and that confidence that somebody says next, you're like, thank you. That rejection is, no, my soul's path is different than yours. Let's not create heartbreak for us by going down a path that we are going to end up in heartbreak later. And the longer we stay in a relationship or a dating situation where we're not with a potential soulmate, the more pain that we put ourselves through. So if somebody says you're not a fit for me, it's actually a gift. And yes, that's vulnerable. And it's risky. But you cannot have soul love without taking a risk of your own vulnerability. This is where all possibility happens. I'm willing to let you see me, because if I let you see me and you love me, holy smokes, the fire and the passion and the truth that we're going to experience together. So it takes that seeing and being seen in all of who we are. There's another aspect, is that we're willing to see the soul purpose of relationship. that when we come together soul to soul, our relationship and each of us individually are more expressed in the world, and we actually have a soul purpose of our relationship that contributes to the world. So this path where we get into the divine love and the union is actually about the difference that our love makes in the world. And so it is the two of you, the relationship and the contribution that that relationship makes in the world because of who you are both being together and individually. This is so powerful and so important. And you grow together. You each become more of who you are, more free, more expressed, more fulfilled, more pleasure, more connection, more intimacy, more joy, all of it. And you keep deepening. More ecstasy because there's more intimacy, because there's more authenticity. More ecstasy because there's more intimacy, because there's more authenticity. We keep going deeper. And you fall into ecstasy. You fall into divine bliss of love, divine truth. And so this is the path. You relating to another, coming into union with another. The self-love, the romantic love, the divine love. How many people say they want unconditional love? We're not capable of unconditional love until we've come into a relationship here where we're honoring another, and then we can begin to feel unconditional love in our human bodies and experience the union of spirit and divine as a human being in this life on this planet. So I want to remind you, and I'm going to share my vision with you in a moment, my mission statement, but I want to remind you, if something is resonating or if there's nervousness here, then go register for a soul love date, because the nervousness, the butterflies are telling you that you are on a path to something bigger than what you've experienced before. And you can't have more without going through a discomfort zone, without expanding your comfort zone. It's like growing pains. And believe me, I go through them. And it's part of loving and expressing our own soul and connecting with another, but you've got to go through that discomfort. So if that's here, or if the mind's going resistance, I don't want to, I didn't, those are all great signs, because it's another sign our ego is going to put up resistance when we want to choose something bigger than what we've experienced before, and it's natural. So again, you can register on my website at soul-love.date.com. Fill in the profile, schedule the appointment, enjoy your bonuses. And if I get the privilege to seeing you on a date, I am honored, because this is my mission: to awaken every man and woman on this planet to the spiritual path of love, self-love, romantic love, divine love, so that we may all know the deepest of connections, pleasures, intimacies, and joys available to us on this human journey. This is why I'm on the planet. If I can serve you, please let me know. I'm grateful for your time. And what I know is that no matter whether we speak or not, and I hope we do, that you will be a ripple of love, that you will carry this out, and we all become beacons and carriers of soul-to-soul love. So thank you for the role that you play in spreading this universal mission and vision. So thank you. Here's to the deepest of love. If you've got questions, email me at soullove@ecstaticintimacy.com. Go to the website, ecstaticintimacy.com. Visit me on Facebook, visit me on YouTube. And here's to soul love in your life. Blessings.